Hi,
hey everyone. What?
I don't know. Hi,
hey everybody.
Friends. Okay, it's time for another episode of What We Read. Again, drawing very, very close to the end of season 2 because we're almost at Book Expo time.
Yeah, this is just Macky and Alexa's bookish new year, as always BA.
Macky established that, by the
The
way.
TBR is renewed. So tempted to do a Marie Kondo.
Well, you're gonna have
style
to
culling.
because that was your resolution.
But they all spark joy. Sorry.
That is not true, and you know it.
I'm a hoarder.
Anyway, we're gonna just jump right off of that into me talking about some of the books I read.
Yes.
So, we're gonna kick things off by talking about Bloodleaf by Crystal Smith.
Pretty packaging that it came into.
Shiny. I did not realize until like a little bit before I started this book, thanks to my friend Rachel from Holocelli, I did not realize until that moment that this was actually inspired by the Goose Girl fairy tale. If you are familiar with that fairy tale, then a lot of the elements in this one are going to be familiar to you. But basically, it is about a princess named Aurelia, and in order to keep an agreement that's been made between her kingdom and a neighboring kingdom, she has to marry the prince of that kingdom, and everything kind of goes to hell, and she has to run away from her kingdom to escape being killed. And on her way to her betrothed, you know, hopefully for him to help her, she ends up getting tricked by an advisor and the advisor's daughter, and so she is basically just left to fend for herself. And she finds her way to this new kingdom, and she sort of finds a way to make contact with people at the palace as well, and then she finds herself in the middle of this incredibly difficult, magical situation that's going on over there. And it's good. It was very enjoyable. It read really quickly. I really liked seeing where the author took elements from the Goose Girl story and then put it into this one. And I also thought the magic system was very interesting in it because that sort of gave it its own flavor, and I really like that a lot. I will say that I do feel like in the long run it is not a story that would stay with me forever, but if you're looking for a fantasy that's on the lighter side, that's a bit more fun, and it also feels like a complete story in one book, then you'll definitely need to check this one out. Okay, so the next book that I want to talk about I actually don't have on me right now because my sister is currently reading the arc of it, but that is Girls with Sharp Sticks by Suzanne Young. Cool. This one is set at a private boarding school for girls in Vermont called Innovations Academy, where girls are basically taught to be the best of the best. The most beautiful, the most well-behaved, the best girl you can be, basically, and that's what they have to offer society. And so the girls at this academy, they just think that they're living their normal everyday lives until one day something makes them start to question everything that they thought they knew, and they find out that there is a big secret thing happening. I went into that one with no expectations whatsoever because I didn't really know all that much about it going into it, and I think that's the best way to go into it because it left me feeling stunned because it was so good. The storytelling was compelling, the pacing was great, the characters were interesting, the setup was really good. All of these elements just really worked together to make a book that I could not put down once I'd started. And coming from me who doesn't often read books like that one, it's a compliment for sure because I just could not tear my eyes off the page once I'd started, and it ends so well. It could be a great standalone, but I also think it could be a good beginning for a duology because there are some things I would still like to see happen. So I don't know, hasn't been announced if it was going to be a series or a standalone. Fingers crossed that it gets at least one more book. But yeah, it was very, very good. It was something I would definitely recommend checking out. The next book that I need to talk about is Four Dead Queens by Astrid Schulte. I always say that name wrong. Anyway, this book is about four dead queens. No, I'm kidding. It's about a thief named Carolee.
A plot point.
It's about a thief named Carolee, and she's tasked to steal a very valuable item from a messenger named Varen. And Varen actually turns up at an auction house where this is being sold on the black market in order to retrieve his item. And then the two of them end up discovering that the item actually reveals the fact that the four queens of their kingdom are all murdered. And so they have to figure out who the culprit is, and that involves them teaming up, of course, for their own devices as well. And it was really fun. It's like a very light fantasy murder mystery type thing, and I thought it was good. It's not, again, it's not one of those books that will stay with me forever, but while I was reading it, I was really enjoying it. It's a bit formulaic in terms of how everything is structured, and it's also kind of really quick to get to the resolution by the ending of it, but again, very enjoyable, very quick, very fast-paced. I really had a good time reading it, and that's sometimes all you really want from a book, so you should definitely check it out if it sounds at all interesting to you. And then I get to talk about a book that I've been meaning to read for some time. I actually did the thing where I watched the movie before I read the book, which is not always something I like to do, but in this case it was fine. And that book is Crazy Rich Asians by Kevin Kwan. This is the first book in this trilogy. And this main storyline centers around Rachel Chu, and she goes with her boyfriend Nick Young back to Singapore, where Nick's family is, to attend a family wedding, only to find out that Nick is not just this professor type person that she knows, but he's actually one of the richest people in Asia, heir to this entire fortune and family name. And his family is not necessarily her biggest fan because she doesn't quite have the right pedigree or family name. And so there's a lot of family drama, obviously. There's also a lot of relationship drama in this one, and a lot of like
real
fun
life
descriptions
things
of like how rich people in Asia are, because like, let me tell you, having lived in Asia and also having visited Singapore, a lot of things in this book are actually true. Maybe a little exaggerated, but mostly true.
Yeah.
It's also fun to see these family dynamics that I recognize so well from my own family and like other families that I am very familiar with in the Philippines. It's not just Singaporean families, although this is like to an extreme, mind you, but there are just some certain things.
There are elements that are present regardless of your social strata.
It's very fun to read.
Strata.
It takes a while to get into because there's a lot of hopping between points of views, and you jump from one character storyline to the next, and some of them you care more about than others. But on the whole, it's very, very entertaining, and I'm very much looking forward to continuing the series. I will also say that this one made me really hungry because they kept describing food in Singapore, and I was like, this is unfair because I can't have any of it.
Yeah, Singaporean food is my like second favorite in all the universe. So
yeah, so it was really fun. So I highly recommend checking out the book and also watching the movie, which was great. Now it's time for Macky's moment.
A couple of things. So again, immersed in graphic novels and video games, so I haven't had the chance to really pick up a good book and really read through it. Let's start with this. So good run off from BA last year. This is Black Eyed Kids. I can't keep thinking Black Eyed Peas.
Me too.
But it's Black Eyed Kids, and as you can see, the Black Eyed Kids on the front cover. I mean, it's blurred by Garth Ennis, so you know it's got to have that kind of creepy, well, not creepy, but that kind of edgy vibe to it. It's a horror comic that opens up on this simple trope of the monstrous, like child. The horror genre in itself is built on one simple premise: take something that seems safe and seems unassuming and seems cool, and then make that the life-threatening thing. And so in this case, it's these.
Yeah, that is a fun
so it's always scarier when it's a child or a woman, because those are things that are usually, according to the zeitgeist, most likely not to kill you. So in the horror genre, they will. The story opens up on a family where you've got a little kid looking out the window saying they're coming ominously, and then they do, and then people start getting hacked to bits by these kids with like these kind of dark eyes, only to reveal what they are, who are they, and that's really the nature of the horror genre as well. It's there's this threat, they're powerless against it, people are dying, and the reveal is the point. I would have loved watching this thing as a kid, because I went through a horror movie phase. Now it's just, okay, I'm a little old, and I'd rather just read it off the page. I am interested in getting the rest. Just I need to know what happens now, so I will probably get the rest of the series, maybe in the library, and then if it ends really, really well, then it'll be one of the things I'll want to collect, like Fables and Why the Last Man, that kind of thing. So I only really just want to collect stuff that I'm like, oh my gosh, this story changed my life. But here so far it's really just a fun horror read, and it's creepy as all hell. Creepy, scary, gross, and disturbing as all heck. So for any horror fan out there, you're gonna like that. I got this arc at BA as well, and it's called Norway, Book 1, The Black Bull of Norway by Kit and Kat Seaton. Kit and Kat Seaton are a sister duo that does art and story, and so that alone is in itself like worth celebrating. Oh yeah, because that's super fun. It's a story about a girl who, as a child, with her like village friends, wanted to go to the witch to see who they would marry. That wasn't her question though. While the two girls she went with wanted to, who shall I marry? She's like, do I ever get to sail a ship? Which got her
my kind of person.
Which got her a cuff on the head from the girls. It's like, you silly thing. But they told her anyway who she was going to marry, and that would be the Black Bull of Norway. And she grows up, and the bull actually shows up. It's based on a Scottish fairy tale.
That's interesting.
And I only read the blurb like halfway through the book, and I'm just like, what's going on? This is like super hyper realistic. The lore is kind of like so unique and sort of all over the place you would think, but then you realize, oh, it's actually based on a fairy tale. Oh, sure. definitely based on the fairy tale. And it's really just a matter of, will she be able to break the curse on her husband-to-be? When I read it, I finished it, I'm like, oh my gosh, it came out of BA last year. I gotta know when book 2 comes out. And then I just realized it was just released in November. And I'm like, oh no. It's just a few months in. It's gonna be a while. I'm definitely gonna be looking out for the rest of this because this is so good. So kudos to Kit and Kat Seaton. I only dream someday to do exactly as they have done, which is, work with my brother and get some of these stories that we love telling each other growing up out there in the world. So cool. So that was fun. And then last 2 books that I'd read were actually volumes 1 and 2 of the trade paperback editions of Jeff Johns' Teen Titans run, set in the Teen Titans timeline prior to the New 52 and prior to Rebirth, where we're transitioning from the original Teen Titans having become the Titans. So this is Dick Grayson turning into Nightwing, Starfire, Raven, right, all of these things, and sort of having them come after one of the crises or something. It was one of those big DC things where Donna Troy had perished, unfortunately. That was a huge deal. And so Donna's dead, the Titans are devastated and quit basically being the Teen Titans. And also it'd be ridiculous to call themselves Teen Titans because they're not teens anymore, prompting their younger sort of counterparts to step in. So the new Robin, Tim Drake, who is not interested at all in sort of stepping into Dick Grayson's shoes and doing, it's like, that's Dick's group, I'm not gonna join that. And Batman's like, yeah, but your friends need you. And then there's Cassie Sandsmark, who is the new Wonder Girl, who is also reeling from the loss of Donna, who was not endorsed by Wonder Woman, by the way, because she's kind of a troublemaker. You've got Connor Kent, who is not a cinnamon roll like John, but is the Luthor Clark Kent clone, who just recently found out that, shoot, I'm a clone? It's a spoiler for people who never... Really. But not really, it's been around. It's like saying Bruce Wayne is Batman. Connor's a thing. Bart Allen, Impulse, who eventually takes on the mantle of Kid Flash, comes from the future, total slacker. So I'm reading this, bunch of misfits that are joining the New Teen Titans, and I'm like, this is such a cool kind of transition story where you don't have new teammates, you have a new generation of kids that Starfire and the others are going to train, and the shenanigans that ensue from there. So I really appreciated that. There's even an arc in there when they encounter alternate versions of themselves 40 years down the line, or not 40, alternate versions of themselves 10-ish, 15 years down the line, where they're the new Justice League, and they're dark versions of themselves. And I'm just like, all right, Jeff Johns, you got a thing going for you. So it's really fun. Definitely a must-read for any Teen Titans fan. If you like both, first of all, the idea and the legacy of it. I mean, it's not Dick, Donna, and Wally, and Roy anymore, and Garth. But it's the new kids. It's not even Starfire and Raven anymore. It's although they're there, it's these kids. And so they're coming into their own, and they've got their own brand of stuff. And yes, they lie. They do. And special appearance from the other Robin, the 5th Robin, that nobody really talks about much, who also perished in the line of duty, or so they thought. So that's a little spoilery Easter egg there. So that was a fun read. So the next book that I finished, I don't own a copy of yet, but that's because it's not out yet. And that book is Field Notes on Love by Jennifer E. Smith. This book essentially has a premise straight out of a movie. So Hugo has been gifted by his ex-girlfriend Margaret with tickets to do a cross-country trip from the East Coast to the West Coast of the United States, except that this Margaret Campbell girlfriend of his breaks up with him before this trip. And the only way he can use all of the tickets and stuff is to find another Margaret Campbell. And he does. And they go on this trip. And things happen. Suffice to say, when I started this book, I had forgotten completely what the premise was about. And also, I did not think that I was going to resonate with it as much as I did. Because what essentially ended up happening was I was like, oh, this is gonna be cute and I'm gonna feel great after. Yeah, no, that was a lie. Because what essentially happened was I got to know May and Hugo, who are the 2 point of view characters in the story, and they're each trying to make sense of something for themselves. And the thing is, the things that they were trying to work out for themselves, their personal conflicts, they resonated so deeply with me on a personal level that I was just like crying almost half the book, because I felt like I could relate so much to what they were going through, and it was a very, very strong emotional connection for me reading this one, and I loved it. Like, I completely loved it. So testament to Jennifer E. Smith's writing for this one, and I really enjoyed it. Story-wise, it's also really great. I quite like the cross-country trip, and I think it's something that I would like to do sometime in the future. It's a very special book. I think a lot of people are really gonna enjoy it. I hope a lot of people are gonna enjoy it as much as I did, so definitely check it out. After that, I read my favorite Half Night Stand by Christina Lauren because I needed to feel better.
like, you know, happier. And I don't have my copy of that one because I lent it to Rachel from Hello Chelly, but the story of that one is that there is this woman named Millie, and she has 4 guy best friends. And they're all kind of nerds because they're all professors. There's this big, like, ball coming up, and they all require dates. And so in order to get these dates, they decide that they're all gonna embark on this online dating life together. The thing that happens is that the girl, she ends up creating a second profile where she uses her middle name and like a sort of thinly disguised picture, I guess, because she's turned away from the camera, and she actually matches with one of the guys in their group. The closer they get online is also equivalent to how much they're getting closer in real life, literally, because they start having a friends with benefits type thing. And so you can kind of guess what the major conflict of that story is going to be. And here's the thing, it's a Christina Lauren book, so I kind of expected it to be what it was when I went into it, and it was fine. Like, I enjoyed it for what it was. I'm always up for a like contemporary romance that's quick to read, and this was definitely the case. Plus, the group of friends and Millie, like their entire group was just fun to read about. And the setting was also really great too. I don't think that the way that it was handled was smart, because come on, if you're best friends with someone, you're gonna tell them the truth. Even if it's hard. Even if it makes them mad at you. Ideally, but obviously that did not happen. And so clearly I have a lot of feelings about what happened there. It's not my favorite Christina Lauren book. In fact, it's probably not even close to like the middle or the top. But it was still a Christina Lauren book, so you can say that it was pretty much just like good. Solidly good.
It was a good read, yeah.
Okay, the next book I need to talk about is very cute. It's called The Penderwicks, and the long title is A Summer Tale of 4 Sisters, 2 Rabbits, and a Very Interesting Boy. This is by Jean Birdsall. And here's the thing, I kept thinking for some reason that this book had been published like a while ago, because I mean, like, look at the packaging for it. It kind of looks like it was published like a little while ago, 40s, 50s. Yeah, no, this was published in like 2007. The story is essentially like a combination of Anne of Green Gables, Little Women, and The Secret Garden all in one book.
Oh, hello.
So it's these 4 sisters, and they go on a summer vacation where they stay in the cottage that's right off a big estate. While they're in this cottage, they get up to a lot of adventures. They go exploring in some prized gardens, dig a tunnel somewhere, maybe encounter a bull, possibly meet 2 rabbits, occasionally run away, also meet this boy. It's a lot of things. But it was really, really fun to read about. The sisters are probably the best part of the story, for sure, because they're all very different personalities. They're just such a great group of people. I really, really enjoyed their story.
Do they have a marmee?
No, their dad is great, though.
Oh, then that's the one parent figure.
There's a dad, and then there's the housekeeper.
Even better.
And there is the gardener. The one that the oldest develops sort of
gets
crush
better
on.
and better with these. With
and then there's the boy they become friends with.
Oh dear.
Who's kind of a troublemaker, but is also great. And it's just a totally enjoyable story that reads really fast, and I came to love these sisters so much, and I can't wait to see what happens next in the rest of the series. And the last book that I'm going to talk about in this video is The Risk by Elle Kennedy. This is the second book in the Briar U series, which is a spin-off of her Off-Campus series. In the second book, the main character is Brenna, who is the daughter of the coach of the Briar hockey team. She's pretty outspoken, and she knows what she wants, and she goes after that. And here's the thing, she really wants this internship, but by some twist of fate, the person who has to help her get it is star forward of a rival hockey team, Jake Connolly. And so she has to get him to agree to fake date her in order to get the attention of the person who's supposed to be hiring her, who's kind of a misogynist, is a terrible, terrible boss. The deal that Jake strikes with her is that he will agree to be her fake date if she will give him a real date in return. Oh. Because it's very undeniable from the moment those two first meet that they have chemistry. And
chemistry.
So,
that's
kind of want to see where that goes. And oh my gosh, I really, really enjoyed this one. I was a little nervous because I had liked the first book, but I didn't love it. And so I was like, oh, I might just feel the same way about the second book. Nope, clearly not, because the entire time I was like, oh my god, it's taking them forever to like get it on, just get it on. And you know me, when I find a good ship, I'm just like, yes.
Well, chemistry is the basic food group of
yes, but they had
trash,
so much, it was like great because it was the kind of antagonistic, like, I don't want to like you, but I do chemistry that I love. Oh my gosh, and it was so well done. I absolutely enjoyed it. Pretty much just was living for their banter and like all of their confrontations, and then when they finally get to the point where they decide like they're gonna try this for real, I'm just like, thank you, we're here. That's exactly why we read these things. Exactly. So I definitely enjoyed that one way more than the first one, and I would highly recommend checking it out if you haven't already. And with that is the end of this What We Read video. We hope you guys will tune in for the next one. Also, let us know what you're reading down in the comments. We'd love to know. And we will see you guys for another video soon. Bye!